This is the Strong is a Mindset podcast, episode number 121. Limiting beliefs are getting in your way. Let me show you how to bust through them. This is the Strong is a Mindset podcast, where you'll learn how to build both a strong body and a strong mind by eating, moving, and thinking. I'm your host, physician, personal trainer, certified health coach, and certified life coach, Carrie Holland. Hey, how are you? What's new? What's good? So, what's good here? We are going to talk about what to do with your limiting beliefs today. I'm going to give you some questions that you can come back to in order to start unraveling your limiting beliefs. And I'm going to help you when it feels new and weird and uncomfortable to practice thinking new beliefs. Because it's one thing to pull apart a limiting belief, but it's another thing entirely to practice thinking differently about yourself. And both of these skills are essential to moving you forward toward your goals. And to be honest, I'm pretty excited to get into this one because I think that this work is really where the money's at. This is truly where all the growth and change is. It's when you pull apart the thoughts and beliefs that are keeping you stuck and replace them with new thoughts that serve you better. So, you know, I love to talk about how to eat and protein and food prep and meal planning and all of the details related to your nutrition. And I also love to talk about exercise and how to lift weights and how to build muscle. And to be clear, those things are important. Those are all things that will combine to make you strong on the outside. However, what we're going to talk about today, like how to pull apart your limiting beliefs, that is the kind of work that makes you strong on the inside, okay? And to be perfectly honest, this is the stuff that really matters. This is the stuff that matters most. It's how you think. It's how you talk to yourself. It's what you believe about yourself. That matters way more than how much can you bench or what's the best macro split for fat loss. But I get it. It's easier to focus on the how, like how many grams of protein or how many sets and reps do you need in order to grow your biceps. Those things, those are all external. And for many of you, they're easier to address than your limiting beliefs and what you think about yourself. So, you know what's funny? I'm going to share something here. This is fascinating to me. So for this podcast, I get analytics that tell me how my episodes perform. So I find out which ones have the highest listening rates and the highest percentage of listening all the way to the end, etc. And the episodes that hands down get the highest ratings are the ones about calories or protein or counting carbs or strength training. And I get it. That is the how. And in order to get anywhere with your goals, you certainly need a roadmap. In order to build muscle or in order to lose weight, yes, you need to know the how. At the end of the day, you need direction. You need to know what to do. And I do just that in those episodes. I will tell you how to find protein as a vegan. I'll tell you what kind of carbs to focus on so you can lose weight without going keto. I'll tell you the best exercise to get the most out of your strength training sessions. That's your roadmap. That's your how. But that information will only take you so far. So please understand something. Please learn from my own mistake. If you really want to be strong, it is going to take more. It's going to take more than protein and deadlifts and calories, okay? I've said it before, but I think it's worth repeating here. You can be the most jacked person in the room, but if you are not taking care of your brain and taking care of your mind, then you are not truly fit. I tried that. I tried it for years. I tried it during the hardest period of my adult life, and it just does not work, okay? Having muscles, looking jacked, and having a ripped body on the outside really does not matter if you don't like yourself on the inside, all right? No amount of muscle and no amount of weight loss will ever be enough if you don't like who you are on the inside first. It will never be enough because those muscles cannot fill the void of your own self-worth, okay? This is so important to understand. But often, we nod and we smile at the idea and kind of laugh off the mindset stuff and say, no, thank you. Just tell me how to lose the fat off my belly, and then I'll think about liking myself. Just let me get into these smaller pants, or let me have one more arm vein popping out first, and then I will get to work on liking myself. Or at least that's what I did. But that doesn't cut it. Because in order to have true wellness, you need all three. You need all three: eating, moving, and thinking. Okay? And you can't skip over that last one. You can't be a machine and strong arm yourself into eating and exercising a certain way and expect to come out liking yourself on the other end if you haven't taken care of your mind too. But I understand. I get it. I tried that approach. I tried to squeak by and just get super jacked and fit as stink and nail my strength training sessions as hard as I could and then go eat super clean and get rid of anything that was processed. And I thought that would be enough. I thought that would be enough to fix my body and make me happy and make me like myself more and make people like me more. But that was a joke. I was fooling myself. Okay? But it's easy to get sucked in. It's a lot easier to do that work. In all honesty, it's easier for most of us to white knuckle through a low or no carb diet, or white knuckle through meal after meal of plain chicken breast and broccoli, or white knuckle through yet another HIIT workout than it is to go inside and find what you don't like about yourself, or to pull apart your limiting beliefs and replace them with new and better ones. It's hard to unearth the ways that we've been trying light in our lives and resolve to stop trying light and start trying hard. It's hard to see the places where we've let ourselves down and decide, I'm going to do better for myself. That kind of work is way harder, in my opinion. I've tried both ways, and the brain work is way harder. But because you are human and I am human, we go for the easier route. We try every diet or program known to man to lose weight. We hire coaches who will get us jacked with killer workouts and tell us exactly how much protein to eat. We push our bodies to the limit in order to have a bigger shoulder cap and a smaller waist size. We eat bars and shake systems that are next to 0 calories in order to move the scale. And while those things may work for a little while, what you're really doing is building a tough outside that runs the risk of being empty on the inside. My best friend, she called me an armadillo. Heavy armor on the outside, but inside, weak, fragile, an armadillo. And it wasn't until decades later, when it felt like my entire adult life was crashing down around me, that I understood what she meant and how right she was. I don't even know that she knows how much those words that she uttered decades ago impacted me, but she was so right. And then I decided I didn't want to be an armadillo anymore. But that meant doing work that was even harder than squatting a barbell loaded with plates. It meant doing something harder than cutting back on pastries because I have a sweet tooth. It meant going inside. It meant finding the things I didn't like about myself, finding the beliefs that were totally shooting me in the foot and working through them. And I will tell you in full transparency, that work, which I'm still doing, by the way, is much, much harder than any leg day workout I have ever done. But here's the thing, this work, it's worth it. Now that I'm actually doing it, and now that I practice this stuff, I feel better, for real. It's not just about looking a certain way and having muscle. It's about feeling better inside. It's an inside-out approach. When you are willing to do the real, serious, hard work of going inside to examine what's holding you back, that is when you get strong as hell. Because most of us have thoughts that we believe about ourselves that are not helping us. Most of us have sentences that we've been telling ourselves for so long that we don't even stop to question them. And my sentence for decades was, I can't do this. And it didn't matter what this was. It could have been going into the hospital in the middle of the night for delivery. It could have been asking my kids to pick up their toys for the 100th time. It could have been yet another fight between my parents. Whatever it was, my belief was, I can't do this. But now that I see it, I can do something about it. Before, I was just swimming in it. I didn't bother to question my belief of I can't do this. I just accepted it as truth and took it at face value. But now that I see all the ways that belief was keeping me stuck, I know better. And it was not until I finally started questioning that belief that things started changing for the better in my life. And that is when I got stronger than any gym workout could ever make me. Because it's when you strengthen your brain first that you get legitimately stronger. Okay? So here it is. This is what we're doing. I'm going to talk you through how you actually do this. I'm going to walk you through some key questions that will help you pull apart your limiting beliefs so you can see them for what they truly are. And then we're also going to answer one of the hardest questions I stumbled on when I tried to do this myself. Because, like I said, it's one thing to rip apart a limiting belief, but it is another thing entirely to practice thinking something different. And I want you to be equipped to do that. I want you to have skills to pull apart your limiting beliefs, but I also want you to be ready to start thinking differently about yourself. Because when you do that, and you do it for real, that is when you get super strong, both inside and outside. Okay? So let's go. Let me help you untangle the beliefs that are keeping you stuck. All right. So I think to walk through this, it is best to use an example. And this one is a common limiting belief that comes up all the time in my coaching sessions. So we're going to take it and run with it. And that belief is my schedule makes it impossible for me to eat healthy. This one is probably the most common roadblock that I work through with my weight loss clients. And if that's the sentence you've been telling yourself for decades, then you've practiced it enough that it's become your belief. It's become your truth. Because remember what a belief is, okay? A belief is your most practiced thought. So to put it even more simply, the more you tell yourself a sentence, the more it gets locked into your brain and accepted as the truth. But there's a difference between your truth and the truth, right? There's a big difference. Your truth is not the same as the absolute truth. And you need to be able to show that to yourself. And we need to call that out in a kind way, of course. So if you take your thought, my schedule makes it impossible for me to eat healthy, let's ask yourself some questions about it. And here are those questions. Okay, so first, ask, is it true? So is it really true that it is impossible for you to eat healthy? Is that the absolute truth? No. Okay, in a word, no. At the risk of irritating you, there are people out there who are just as, if not more busy than you, who are still managing to eat healthy. Okay? But when you swear up and down that eating healthy is impossible, you've essentially slammed the door shut on any alternative. But I want you to ask yourself this question because it's important to see for yourself that the things you tell yourself are not always the truth. Just because you think it, even if you've been thinking it for years, that does not mean it's fact. Okay? So it is not a fact that eating healthy is impossible for you, no matter how busy your schedule is. And so here's the other thing that comes up when I offer this question. You might be wondering, well, what if there is some truth to the limiting belief you have? So what if, for example, your limiting belief is, I've never been able to keep the weight off before because you've lost and regained weight for as long as you can remember? Well, then you have to keep digging because that thought, I've never been able to keep the weight off before, is a surface level thought. It's easy, it's quick, but if you keep digging, what you may find is that the real thought that we need to prove untrue is I can't keep weight off now because I've never kept it off before. So do you see that? It's subtle, but it's important. So what if it is true that you've never kept the weight off in the past? Does that automatically mean that losing weight is impossible for you now? No. And while it's subtle, it's so essential to keep digging because if you stop at, I've never been able to keep this weight off before without going any further, you might stop there and not bother to try. Okay? So ask yourself, is it true? And most often, the answer is no. All right. So the next question, is it kind? And this one is usually pretty easy and straightforward to answer for most of the women that I work with. Often, our limiting beliefs are not kind. Those beliefs are not kind because they usually assume the worst and don't leave much room for anything else. And those beliefs come from years of repetition and negative self-talk. And if you've been around here at all, you know this already, but let me remind you, you cannot beat yourself up into better. Change does not work that way. So if you want to make time to eat healthy, or if you want to make time to exercise or look for a new job, it works best if you approach it from a place of kindness. And thinking that those things are impossible, those are not kind thoughts, okay? Those thoughts block you from getting creative and looking for solutions. You can't talk yourself down. You can't shoot yourself down with negative thinking and expect to positively change your life that way. That just does not work. And when you tell yourself that something is impossible, I would argue that that is most definitely not kind. All right, and next question. Is it helpful? And again, this is usually a pretty easy one to answer. Our limiting beliefs, by nature, are limiting. They are not helpful. And I think of it this way. Our limiting beliefs generally come laced with phrases like, there is no way I can. It is impossible for me to. I have never been able to. I don't have time to. I am too busy to. It is too hard to. And I would argue that any statement that starts with one of those phrases is not helpful. And here's why. When you tell yourself, there is no way I can, fill in the blank, you are basically shutting the door to any alternative. You are slamming the door shut on possibility. And I call that thinking in terms of impossibility. And that is selling yourself short entirely. When you tell yourself things that start with, there is no way I can, or I am too busy to, or it is too hard for me to, That is keeping you from thinking about what you are actually capable of accomplishing. Those thoughts rob you of your potential. So by nature, our limiting beliefs are generally not helpful. Okay, so that first question is actually 3 questions stacked together. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? But I lumped them all together into one because most often the answers to all 3 of those are no. And those questions came from the fabulous book, Soundtracks by Jon Acuff. I took his concept and molded it for our purposes today because I think those questions are just that good, and I think they are a great place to start unraveling your limiting beliefs. And as a quick plug, if you have not yet read the book Soundtracks, please go get it and read it now. It was transformative for me. There were some really great thought-provoking questions and concepts in the book, and I promise you will not be disappointed. Plus, if you are an Audible book fan, Jon Acuff is probably the best narrator I have ever listened to. He truly has a gift for both writing and narrating, and you will love the book. Okay, next. The next question to ask yourself about your limiting belief is if there is any evidence that the opposite might be true. So here is what I love about this question. When you are willing to ask yourself this question, it means looking to prove yourself wrong. And that is not an easy thing to do. Most of us do not like to be wrong, and we especially do not like to be wrong about ourselves. So it takes a lot to go inside, take your limiting belief that you've held on to for decades, and be willing to be wrong about it. But this is one of my most favorite ways to pull apart your limiting beliefs because what you're doing is disputing yourself. And it takes a strong person to do that. So going back to our example, when you tell yourself and everyone else that your schedule makes it impossible for you to eat healthy, again, that's thinking an impossibility. You shut the door on eating healthy. But if you're willing to look for evidence that the opposite might be true, now you're getting somewhere. Because when you ask that solution, you're opening yourself up to what might be possible. You're finding the crack in the window that leads to the possibility of a different outcome. And when you're willing to do that, your world opens up. You see alternatives. When you look for evidence that the opposite might be true, you see that maybe, just maybe, there might be a way to make the impossible happen. There might be an opportunity for a different ending to your usual story. And the best part about asking this question is that it compels you to think of ideas. It compels you to get creative. So go back to our limiting thought. My schedule makes it impossible for me to eat healthy. Take that and look for evidence of the opposite. Is it possible to eat healthy with food that is ready-made from the grocery store, like rotisserie chicken and pre-bagged salad? Is it possible to take 5 minutes at the end of dinner to pack a lunch of veggies and protein for the next day at work so you don't have to get takeout? Is it possible to make an egg bake over the weekend that you eat during the week so that you don't end up at Dunkin' Donuts with a bagel on your way to work? And I'm going to argue that all of those things are possible. Because the takeaway from asking this question is this: you will find solutions if you're willing to look for them. Asking the question, is there any evidence that the opposite might be true, is a practice in looking for solutions. And that is exactly what we need if we're going to dismantle the thought patterns that are keeping you stuck. Okay? We need to provide your brain with ideas about what else might be possible. Okay? So ask yourself just that. Is there any evidence that the opposite might be true? And look for the possibilities. You will find them if you look for them. All right, next. The next question to ask when you are stuck in a limiting belief is, what is really underneath this? So here's what I mean. So often when we're considering change or contemplating going after a goal, our limiting beliefs come up in full force. It's like a knee-jerk response, or it's like the part of the iceberg that you can see poking out of the water. So take the example, I don't have time to, and then fill in the blank. Take that phrase and add in whatever it is you really want to change but haven't done yet because you think you don't have time. I don't have time to eat healthy. I don't have time to plan my meals. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to look for another job. Whatever it is that starts with I don't have time to, there is your limiting belief. That's the tip of the iceberg. And then keep going. Keep looking for what's underneath the thought. This is the part of the iceberg that's underwater. The part that you will only find if you're looking for it. So often when I ask a client whatever her I don't have time to statement is really true, she'll be able to see that it's not true. And that's great because that gives us an opportunity to keep digging. So if you're willing to ask yourself what's underneath that thought, then you'll get past the easy surface level thought, and then you'll find what's most often truly at stake. So if you tell me, I don't have time to eat healthy, we're going back to our example here. When we keep going, often my clients will tell me one or more of these. I'm afraid that it won't make a difference. Or what if I have to give up all the foods I like to eat? What if I start eating at home and I still don't lose any weight? What if I make a plan to stop eating takeout and my partner is not on board? And those are just some of the answers that my clients have unearthed when we've started pulling her I don't have time to belief apart. And you can do the same with yours. If you think of your knee-jerk response, I challenge you, don't stop there. Keep going. Ask yourself what is underneath it. And the point of asking what's the thought beneath the thought is to find what is really keeping you from doing what you want to do. Often, your limiting beliefs are very much surface level. Half the time, you may not even be registering it. It's just reflex. Your friends are talking about exercise, and your knee-jerk response is, I just don't have time to exercise, or I'm too busy to exercise. Most often, we use the excuse of I'm too busy, or I don't have time to, or I don't know how to. You use those as reasons to stop before you even get started. But don't stop there. Do not just accept I'm too busy or it's too hard. Don't just accept that as fact, because then you can keep mining your brain and find what is really underneath the limiting belief. Because here's the thing. If you really want to exercise, you will find the time to get it done. If you really want to eat healthy, you will find the time to make it happen. It is possible to do one or both of those things, no matter how busy you are. So I have a hard time accepting that you just don't have the time. And instead, I will keep going. I will keep asking questions until we get to what's really at stake. Because when we learn what is really underneath the thought that's holding you back, then we've got something to work with. So, as an example, what if it's not so much that you don't have time to eat healthy, but when you really get into it, you find that you're afraid you're not going to be able to eat fun foods with your family, like Pizza Friday or ice cream out with your kids? Well, that is a very, very different problem to solve than I don't have time. But once we discover that, then we can pull that apart. So if you're concerned that by eating healthy, that means you never have pizza with your family or you can't ever have ice cream with your kids again, we need to talk through that. Because we need to find a way for you to do those things, okay? We need to find a way for you to have pizza with your family, and we need to find a way for you to have ice cream with your kids without it becoming a free-for-all and without it becoming a downward spiral that leads you to quit your diet altogether. So now we have something to work with. Once we find the thought beneath the thought, we can come up with a plan and strategies so that you still do have foods like pizza, and you have them occasionally, and you practice making it no big deal. We come up with strategies so you decide in advance and have a plan to know, okay, I will have ice cream with my kids once this week, but that means I'll be saying no thank you if they ask me to have ice cream with them again later after their swim meet. Or here's another one that comes up frequently. I don't know how to make time to plan to eat healthy. This is another big one that comes up all the time. So I am not denying that you are busy, okay? Let me make that clear. I don't know a single person who's not busy. So we can acknowledge that you are busy. But at the same time, if you want to change your habits so you can change your life, it might mean that you need to reprioritize. It might mean that you need to set boundaries. It might mean that you have to say no to certain things. It might mean that you spend a few minutes on yourself so you can plan out your meals on a Sunday and be ready to go for your week ahead. And those changes will be new and different for you. They may be new and different for your family. There may be opinions. There may be pushback. You may not want to deal with the pushback and the opinions. But then we've got something to work with. We just went from I don't have time to eat healthy to I don't want to inconvenience or upset anyone in my family by making these changes. And that is a very, very different obstacle to address. But that's okay, because now that we know exactly what is holding you back, we can address it. We can talk about what you will do and what you will say and how you will think when you decide no more takeout on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, even though that's what you've done in your family for forever. We can talk about how you will respond to your family when they have opinions about the veggies you set on the table in place of the loaf of white bread that you usually have with dinner. And do you see what we're doing here? We're just thinking ahead and making some decisions and strategizing so you have something to come back to when it gets hard to follow your plan. And we're doing all of this instead of just simply accepting, I don't have time to eat healthy. We are going beyond the surface level to find what is beneath your limiting thought, so then we can work to address that. Okay? So ask yourself, what is the thought beneath this thought? I really love that question. All right? And next, the next thing to consider when you find a limiting belief is, what do I get by holding on to this thought? So I saved this one because this one is a little cringy, and often when you ask yourself this question, it doesn't feel good. But if you know me at all by now, hopefully you're seeing that I am not about skimming over the hard work, okay? I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but this stuff is serious. These questions can bring up hard things to swallow about yourself. You may find things that you don't like about yourself when you're willing to answer those questions, and this one is no exception. So let me make something really clear. We do not hang on to beliefs that do not serve us in some way. Okay? You do not hold on to limiting beliefs unless you get something out of it. Remember that your brain is sneaky, stealthy, lazy, and stubborn. And limiting beliefs, which are often habit, are your brain's way of conserving energy by keeping you from doing the hard work of changing your life. So even though those limiting beliefs are not helping you in the long term, your brain really doesn't care because those beliefs are giving you comfort in the short term. Remember, your primitive survival brain only cares about instant gratification. So as long as your brain is comfortable in the here and now of you getting takeout like you've done every Friday night for the last 10 years, then it doesn't care that decades of takeout has kept you from comfortably fitting in your pants. Okay? And that's just it. Whatever it is that you get by holding on to your limiting beliefs often boils down to the same thing. You get miserable comfort. So, what happens when you tell yourself that you don't have time to eat healthy? What do you get by holding on to that limiting belief? Well, you have an answer for when 5:30 p.m. rolls around and you've got exactly 30 minutes to get home and get out the door for the evening shuffle with your kids, and you get fast food. You have a reason to skip the 5 minutes that it takes to write out your meals the night before because you've had a really long day at work and you're tired. You have an explanation for why you've purchased program after program, only to half-heartedly follow them and swear nothing works. So ultimately, you get to be right. But here's the thing. Being right about your limiting beliefs gets you one thing: miserable comfort. And remember, miserable comfort is just as it sounds. It's comfortable because it's what you know. When you tell yourself that you don't have time to eat healthy, you make it true, and you don't eat healthy. But you also don't get anywhere closer to your goals. You don't eat healthy, you don't create new habits, you don't lose weight, and you don't change your lifestyle. And ultimately, you stay right where you are, stuck. You stay miserably comfortable. Even though you don't love it, it's familiar, it's what you know, and it's safe. But the long term of it makes you miserable. So again, I'm generalizing, but if you find what it is that you get by holding on to your limiting beliefs, you will see that while you get to be right about yourself, that comes at the cost of growth. You don't get to prove new things about yourself. You get to stay stuck right in your comfort zone, where it feels good for a minute, but for the long term, it feels miserable. You get miserable comfort. All right. So now, there's one other thing that I want to address here because this comes up commonly when I'm coaching my clients about changing their limiting beliefs. So it's one thing to pull apart a limiting belief by asking, is it true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? It's one thing to look for evidence that the opposite might be true and look for the thought beneath the thought and look at what you get by holding on to your thought. All of those tools are part of the process of breaking down your limiting beliefs. But then it is another thing entirely to practice believing a new thought that replaces the limiting thought. That is another step with challenges all its own. So if you're starting from, my schedule makes it impossible for me to eat healthy, it might be hard to go from that to believing, yeah, I can totally eat healthy. I got this. Your brain is not going to be on board with that. After believing for decades that your schedule makes it impossible to eat healthy, it may be a bit of a stretch to suddenly believe that sure, it's no problem. Your brain is going to put a full stop on that. And so this is where phrases like, I might be able to, or it is possible for me to, or I think I can really help. And again, do you see what we're doing here? All we're doing is opening a crack in the window to possibility. You do not have to be in full 100% belief of your new thoughts yet. But even if you're willing to accept that maybe, or I might be able to, or it's possible that I can eat healthy, well, then you're getting somewhere. Because instead of thinking it's impossible and slamming the door shut on eating healthy, when you think maybe, then you're considering the possibility of a different outcome. And that is all we need to get started. And then here is the other thing that comes up. When you start to unravel your limiting beliefs, you might discover that what you've been telling yourself for years is a lie. If you've been telling yourself for who knows how long that it's impossible to change your eating habits, and you do this work and start to pull it apart, you'll see that you've been telling yourself a lie. But the fascinating thing here is that when you go and practice thinking something else, your brain will see that new belief as a lie. It's fascinating. So let me explain what I mean by this. Your evolved thinking, planning brain, the part of your brain that makes you human. If you really tap into it and do this work, you will see that telling yourself, my schedule makes it impossible for me to eat healthy, is a lie. Your rational brain knows that that is not the absolute truth. But at the same time, your unevolved, primitive Neanderthal brain that still thinks it's the caveman days, that part of your brain thinks that the belief, I might be able to eat healthy, is also a lie. And here's why. That new belief, well, it's new, it's different, it's a change. And remember, your unevolved brain sees any change as a threat to be corrected. So when you introduce that thought, your primitive brain, your fight or flight brain, is going to wig out on you and give you every reason to think, no way, we don't eat healthy, we are too busy, we have too much going on, we don't plan, we don't cook at home, let's head to the drive-thru already. Okay? That is what's going on here. If you've ever wondered why it is so hard to believe new things, and especially to believe new thoughts about yourself, this is it right here. Your primitive, unevolved brain sees new thoughts about you as a threat to be corrected. Those new thoughts are not comfortable, so they are not considered safe. And if you're not watching out for yourself, your brain will reject them in an instant. So here's what I would offer to you when you run into this, because it's not a matter of if, it's when. This will most definitely happen when you have beliefs that you have held onto so tightly for years, okay? I would ask yourself which lie you want to believe. Do you really want to believe the lie that your unevolved brain has been telling you for years? The lie that has been keeping you safe within the walls of your comfort zone? The lie that is keeping you totally stuck in miserable comfort? Or do you want to use your evolved prefrontal thinking brain to practice thinking a different lie, which in reality is really not a lie at all? Do you want to practice believing and telling yourself and acting on a new thought, even though it may feel weird and uncomfortable at first? It may also move you forward in a positive direction. Do you want to take a risk and stretch yourself by thinking something that feels a little uncomfortable, but can open you up to amazing changes in your life? Or do you want to stay stuck and go around in circles with the same thought that keeps you right where you are? The choice is always yours. And I know it may sound weird to pose the question in that way. I recognize I'm taking a risk by asking you which lie you want to believe. But really, when I was preparing for this podcast, this is what I boiled it down to. Depending on which side of your brain you're accessing, it will see your new thoughts as a lie. But you know better. So when you get tired of the limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck and you decide to engage in this process and be very intentional about believing new thoughts about yourself, you can be ready. When your brain offers you all the reasons you can't eat healthy, when your brain tells you how busy you are and why this is never going to work, you can remind yourself, all right, this is just my brain trying to keep me safe. This is my brain messing with me. This is my brain trying to keep me stuck right where I am. And I see that, but I'm not going to accept it. Because right now, I choose to believe that I can change. I choose to believe that I'm getting just a little bit better every day. I choose to believe that yes, while my schedule is busy, I can still make time to eat healthy. I will let that feel uncomfortable because it's new and different, but I'm not going to let that stop me. And you keep telling yourself that. You repeat your new thought over and over again. And you remind yourself that yes, it feels uncomfortable and it's okay that it's uncomfortable. Nothing is going wrong here, okay? That's so important. Nothing is going wrong when it feels uncomfortable to practice believing different thoughts about yourself. You don't need to stop. You don't need to revert. This is what change feels like. And you lean into it. And then you take the actions to back it up. You take action that proves your new thought true. And no, it's not that you suddenly start making your own seitan at home or growing your own spelt to turn into bread, okay? No. Instead, you take the tiniest of actions to suggest you might believe the new thought. You skip the takeout run for dinner and buy a pre-cooked chicken and a salad from the grocery store. You go grocery shopping and buy fruits and veggies instead of processed foil-wrapped snacks for your workday. You drink water instead of getting a soda from the vending machine. And none of these actions are earth-shattering, and that is by design. You do not need to move mountains in order to start believing new thoughts about yourself. The smallest of actions is enough, okay? It all counts. It all counts. When you take action in support of your new belief, no matter how small that action is, you are building up evidence, okay? You're building a case for yourself. You are showing yourself that change is possible, one micro step at a time. All right? And if you want help with this, let's go. When you coach with me, I will help you pull apart your limiting beliefs and practice new ones. And I will help you take action to back it up. Check out my website, send me a message at www.carriehollandmd.com/contact, and let's talk about how changing your thinking will change your life. All right? Thank you again for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you again next week. Hey, if you're looking for your next great read, I've got you covered. Head over to carriehollandmd.com/books and download my list of most favorite reads. I've got 2 collections waiting for you. One is all about work-life balance. The other is a collection of books that have changed my life. I've referenced many of these books in the podcast, and now you can access those titles all in one place. Again, that's carriehollandmd.com/books. Check it out and find your next great read. Thank you for listening to the Strong is a Mindset podcast. If you want to learn more about how to build both a strong mind and a strong body by eating, moving, and most importantly, thinking, check out carriehollandmd.com.